Hello everyone, myself Dr. Deepshikha Dave, and today I'll be taking practical on acute inflammation. So, we as a pathologist, or basically when you all students are reading about pathology, we are basically dealing with two things in pathology. First is itis, that means inflammation. Any part of the body which is inflamed is usually attached with a suffix known as itis. And the omas. Omas are the neoplasms. So the pathology is dealing with basically two things, inflammation and neoplasms. So there is itis and there is oma. So what happens in a vascularized tissue, any stimuli which leads to cell injury also incites a host protective response, which is known as inflammation. So inflammation is basically divided into two parts, acute inflammation and chronic inflammation. So what do we mean by acute inflammation? Anything which is taking few hours, seconds, and till early days, like 1 to 3 days, then such inflammation is categorized as acute inflammation. When the inflammation is taking from days to months for its occurrence, then it is known as chronic inflammation. So now, something about acute inflammation, there is Lewis triple response. So what is Lewis triple response? Lewis triple response is basically flush, flare and wheal. So what is flush? Flush is redness, which is basically due to the capillary dilatation. Flare. Flare is basically redness around that area from which inflammation is occurring. Then it is due to arteriolar dilatation. Wheal. Wheal is basically a tumorous response or a swelling, which is due to exudation or edema. Now, 4 cardinal signs of inflammation which have an added sign of inflammation. So basically there are 5 cardinal signs of inflammation which are rubor, tumor, calor, dolor and functiolese. That means redness, then there is swelling, then there is heat, there is pain and there is loss of function of that particular organ. Now events in acute inflammation are very important because this is all. It is correlated directly with the microscopic findings that you will see, even the gross findings in the structure which is undergoing acute inflammation. So first of all, there is an increased blood flow. Why there is an increased blood flow? Because we want that all the fighting agents, what are the fighting agents in inflammation? All the neutrophils, the acute inflammatory cells should come to that place from where the inciting stimulus is basically releasing the chemotactic agents. So for fighting that, there is increased blood flow so that the cells can go there. Second comes the increased permeability. What will the cells do if they cannot come out of this capillary bed? If they are in vessels, they are of no help. They will have to come out into the tissue to help remove the toxins or the bacteria from that place. And that's why we need an increased permeability. Last comes the migration of neutrophils. This is a specific thing. In permeability, increased permeability, there is loss of fluid, there is loss of RBCs. But with migration of neutrophils, we are neutrophils which are going to that place from where the inciting stimulus has basically asked the neutrophils to come and fight. Now this is a normal capillary bed and the capillary bed which has undergone acute inflammation. So when you are seeing a normal capillary bed, you can see that the arterioles are in a resting phase, venules are in resting phase and even the capillaries are in resting phase. There is an extracellular matrix and there are occasional cells which are in the interstitium. Now whenever there is inflammation, there is arteriolar dilatation. You can see here, this area has undergone dilatation and now the dilatation again traverses the whole capillary bed and reaches till the venular dilatation. So there is an increased blood flow. You can see that the neutrophils have migrated outside into the interstitium. This is a specific finding in acute inflammation. Whenever we are saying acute inflammation, we will be dealing about polymorphonuclear cells. That means neutrophils, eosinophils. Whenever we are saying chronic inflammation, we will be dealing with mononuclear cells. So basically histiocytes, macrophages and lymphocytes. So a word about neutrophils. How will you identify these cells? These cells are basically lobulated nucleus and a cytoplasm. So these lobulated cells look like this in tissue section. Now you will say that you are unable to see the bands which basically connect the neutrophil lobes. But because the tissue is fixed and there is shrinkage artifact or the shrinkage of the tissue which is around 40%, so that's why we are unable to see the normal bands connecting the lobes of neutrophils, which we are usually seeing in our peripheral smears or other cytological smears. In this case, you will be seeing lobulations like this, like flower heads, without any connecting bands. This is how the neutrophils are recruited. First, there is increased blood flow, so there is dilatation of the vessel caliber. With this dilatation, the neutrophils start adhering to the capillary wall. First of all, there is a process known as rolling, in which neutrophils are not tightly adhered to the capillary wall, but they are basically trying to marginate towards the sides. Usually, you should be knowing that the flow within a vessel is a laminar flow. What do you mean by a laminar flow? That in the sides where there is endothelial cells, there is only fluid. That means the plasma. Whereas in the center, all the cellular elements flow. That means the RBCs as well as the neutrophils, lymphocytes, whatever are in the vessel. So in this case, what will happen? This plasma will not stay here and the cellular particles will start adhering to the capillary walls. So rolling, then tight adhesion. After tight adhesion, there is diapedasis. What is diapedasis? There is movement of these neutrophils outside these fenestrations from the capillary endothelial cells, and these neutrophils move out from the capillaries into the interstitium towards their chemotactic agents. So what you are seeing here, this is a beautiful picture of neutrophils marginated at the walls of the periphery of the capillaries. Can you see? There is plasma, there are RBCs, but the neutrophils have come from this place, this central area, towards this peripheral area of the capillary wall, and they are basically adhering or marginating at the periphery. Observe neutrophils when they are having a movement out from the vessel wall. Can you see? Again, there are marginated neutrophils in this picture. Central area contains of RBCs, but the neutrophils have migrated out into the interstitium. This is a histological picture of a lung. So you all know these alveoli basically air-filled spaces and not having any cellular components. But in this case, what has happened? These neutrophils, which have already marginated in the vessel wall, have migrated outside into the alveoli through a process known as diapedasis. Now a word about what we will be dealing with in our practicals. In our practicals, basically you need to know few things. First of all is acute appendicitis, second is acute meningitis, then there is pneumonia and there is typhoid. So these all comes under acute inflammation practicals. So today first topic is acute appendicitis. So an adult appendix is basically 7 centimeters in length. There is no known function, and that's why we say this is a rudimentary organ. It has got all the 4 layers of gastrointestinal tract. That is mucosa, submucosa, muscularis propria and serosa. But it is extremely rich in lymphoid tissue in the mucosa and submucosa. So that's why we can identify this organ by a gross, richly supplied lymphoid area in the mucosal and submucosal layers. So where is the location? This is the cecum from where the large intestine starts. So this cecum area contains appendix. Most of the time appendix is located posteriorly, but it could be in any location or any of the clocks. That means 12 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, anywhere. Now what is the location of appendix? It is the right iliac fossa. So any pain in the right iliac fossa, your first differential should come, that is acute appendicitis. Now 50 to 80% of the cases are associated with obstruction of the lumen of an appendix, which is usually by a fecalith and less commonly by a gallstone, tumor or a ball of worms. So the fecalith are the commonest causes for obstructing the lumen of an appendix. This obstructed lumen, what does it do? It gives rise to the secretion accumulation. So what kind of secretion is there? Mucinous secretion. This accumulates within the lumen. Again, it causes increased pressure and eventual collapse of the draining veins of an appendix. And that's why the appendix undergoes necrosis. First it is inflamed, and then if it is not taken out, it will undergo necrosis. This ischemic injury gives rise to inflammatory edema, exudation, further embarrassing the blood supply, and finally causing necrosis. In a significant minority of inflamed appendices, the etiology remains unknown. So that's why it is quite possible that a range from 20 to 50% of the cases you may not find anything obstructing the lumen, but the patient is still suffering from acute appendicitis. So this is a pictographic representation of a ficolith which is obstructing the lumen. The lumen is very small of an appendix, but now what happens? The secretions started accumulating within the lumen, and that's why compromising the blood supply, first of all the venous drainage and then the arterial supply of an appendix. So how does it present clinically? It is usually seen in adolescents and young adults. Males are more commonly affected. There is basically the pain, umbilical to right lateral quadrant. That means a pain which usually starts in the umbilicus and then it basically locates itself in the right iliac fossa. Then there is nausea and vomiting, abdominal tenderness and fever. Total counts are usually more than 15,000 cells per cubic mm. So basically a triad of pain, vomiting and fever. This is what is required to diagnose a case of acute appendicitis. You can then ask the person to undergo USG findings, and if the USG findings suggest an inflamed appendix, the surgeon will surely remove the appendix. What are the complications? There is perforation and peritonitis. Once perforated, this exudates will go inside the peritoneum and hence secondary inflammation of the peritoneum occurs, which give rise to peritonitis. Phlebitis with thrombosis of the portal vein drainage. So basically an inflammation and thrombosis of portal vein. Liver abscess, again portal vein damage once occurs, liver abscess can occur secondarily. There can be acute inflammation, or basically the bacteria may go into the blood, and that's why there will be bacteremia, and if it is associated with fever and clinical findings, then it will be septicemia. May be associated with intestinal obstruction in 50 to 80% cases in the forms of ficolith, gallbladder stones, tumors, ball of worms. Specifically, the worm which involves an appendix is Enterobius vermicularis, so known as pinworm. Conditions mimicking appendicitis may be mesenteric lymphadenitis, which is secondary to enterocolitis, basically an inflammation of the small intestine and the associated lymph nodes. Acute salpingitis, there can be fallopian tube inflammation, there can be ectopic pregnancy which has ruptured, there can be Meckel's diverticulum which has undergone inflammation, there can be Crohn's disease, or there can be irritable bowel syndrome. So these can be the conditions which basically give rise to a right iliac fossa pain with same findings, maybe pain, vomiting and fever. Now, what will a pathologist do? It will ask for the morphology. So morphology is divided into two parts, gross and microscopy. Grossly, normal glistening serosa is transformed into a dull, granular red membrane. Microscopically, neutrophilic exudates are found throughout the mucosa, submucosa and muscularis propria. They may also reach up to serosa. They can give rise to peritonitis, and that's why the serosa can have ulceration or any exudate membranes over there. Subserosal vessels are congested and often there is modest perivascular neutrophilic infiltration. Whenever we will talk about acute inflammation, we will be basically talking about neutrophils and neutrophilic infiltrate. It is classified into acute, suppurative and gangrenous stage. Basically, it is how we classify in the pathology. All will be depending upon the involvement of mucosa, wall and serosa. If there are only the neutrophils and congested blood vessels and the exudates are less, that is the mild changes, then we will classify it into acute. Acute suppurative will have additional necrosis as well as purulent exudates. That means the presence of pus. Then it is known as acute suppurative appendicitis. Now acute gangrenous will have ulceration which is hemorrhagic type, and there is association of greenish black necrosis. whenever we are talking about gangrene, it has to have a greenish black necrosis. And that's why there is an ulceration both of mucosa as well as outside. That means in the serosal layer. So it is acute gangrenous appendicitis. This is how an inflamed appendix looks like. Can you see? These vessels are engorged, seen over there. And the appendix is basically stiff, hard and swollen. Now in this case, you will see that there are additional fibrin exudates which are present. Can you see? These are the whitish patches that are overlying this whole reddish inflamed appendix. The cut section of the same case, can you see? The lumen is basically obliterated over here, again over here, and here there is collection of secretions. And whenever there will be collection of secretions, at this place you will see that the mucosa has eroded. Okay, and again this is an engorged appendix, which is red. Now what we are seeing here, this is a gangrenous appendix. Can you see? Greenish, black in appearance at the periphery outside, and even the same picture will be in the cut section. Same picture. Can you see? These are the exudates and tip, which is perforated. Perforation means the lumen comes direct connection with the outside, and hence this will give rise to secondary peritonitis. So again, this can be a normal or the early stage or the mild appendicitis you can say, and this is the late stage, which is a florid acute appendicitis. It is a probably acute suppurative appendicitis. Now when we are talking about microscopy, how we will go on for microscopy. Whenever we are passing an appendix, we usually pass all the tubular structures in a cross section. So the cross section will have an area which is pink and the central area which is blue. Why? Because the mucosa and submucosa is rich in lymphoid aggregates, and that's why it contains a dark blue color, whereas the periphery has got muscularis coat, and that's why it will retain its pink color. Again, this is a tip of appendix. Why do we pass a tip of appendix? Because there are high chances of finding a neoplasm and probably a carcinoid. Carcinoid are neuroendodermal tumors. So neuroendocrine tumors are basically seen at the tip of the appendix. Most of the times it is a benign tumor, and that's why it is named as carcinoid, but it can be a high grade neoplasm, even have a mucinous carcinoma. So these are probably found at tips, and that's why the tip is cut in a sagittal section. So this is a cross section and this is a sagittal section. So from the body, from where the appendix starts from the neck, there we have to give two pieces and one of the tip. So this is how you can see. Again, the bluish area are basically full of lymphoid aggregates, and that's why they are retaining a blue color. Where there are cells containing more of cytoplasm, that means the muscle coat, and that's why they are pink. Again, can you see this bluish area? Why? Because it is rich in lymphoid cells, lymphoid aggregates, which are a normal part of an appendix. And again, this muscular coat, which is pink. Why? Because it has ample cytoplasm and small nuclei. Again, this blue area and pink area. Again, this blue area and pink area. And last comes the tip. Tip has a sagittal section, and that's why, can you see, there are blue areas like this and the pinkish area in the periphery. This is how it looks in microscopy. Can you see? This is a mucosal lining of an appendix, which will have mucin containing cells, the normal epithelium. Then there comes the submucosa, which is rich in lymphoid follicles, and that's why it again retains a blue color. Now in this case, can you see these areas? These are still blue. Why? Because these are normal lymphoid follicles with germinal centers. This is the lumen, which is basically, we cannot say what it is containing. It might be containing a figure. And this is the mucosal lining, this is the submucosa, and this is the muscularis propria. And this last layer comes the serosa. Now, what you are seeing here, inflammatory infiltrates within the lumen. When you will notice, see, the mucosal lining is continuous over here. Okay, but here it is ulcerated. Here again, it is ulcerated. Can you see any lining? No, you cannot see any lining over here. Again, here is a small little lining with few glands, but here the gross ulceration is visible. So this is how acute suppurative appendicitis looks like in the microscope. Now, for the diagnosis of acute appendicitis, histological criteria for diagnosis that there should be a neutrophilic infiltrate of the muscularis propria. Why? Because the drainage of exudates into the appendix from the alimentary canal may also induce a mucosal neutrophilic infiltrate. The evidence of muscularis wall infiltration is a prerequisite for the diagnosis of acute appendicitis. So what you are seeing here, these are smooth muscle cells or the muscularis propria of appendix, which is filled with these small punctate cells, and these cells are basically lobulated, and these lobated cells are neutrophils. So this neutrophilic infiltrate. Now what you are seeing here, again, these are the muscle cells. This is the margination of neutrophils. Neutrophils have marginated over here, and now they are going outside into the interstitium, to the submucosa. Muscularis propria, sorry. Again a case of acute appendicitis. What you are seeing here, this is a lumen filled with purulent material. What you are seeing here, these are the glands of appendix, but the lining is ulcerated. Can you see? There is no continuous lining over here. Only present over here, but again it is lost in the middle portion. So acute suppurative appendicitis. Again, high power view, this is the eroded mucosa. Here it is in continuation, but here it is lost. So this is ulceration or the erosion of mucosa, and these all are acute inflammatory infiltrates. Again, can you see? There is continuous lining over here, a little loss over here, but here it is completely lost. The muscularis and reaching up to the subserosal fat. So it has gone, penetrated far more over muscularis propria. These all are polymorphs. In the high power view, you can identify these cells have got lobulations. This is how neutrophils look like in the microscopy at high power. Again, can you see? This is the gland. This gland has been destroyed, and this is all is acute inflammatory infiltrate. Now what you can see here, if you are basically lucky enough, you can find fecalith over here. Fecaliths are basically calcified. Can you see these blue specks? These blue specks are basically calcification or the calcium deposition, and that's why these vegetable materials which are a part of normal stool becomes calcified, and that's why they are called as fecalith, because they become hard stone or stony hard. Again, can you see mucosa is here, here it is eroded, again it is present over here. So there is basically partial loss of mucosa. Now, sometimes you can see the worms of Enterobius vermicularis within the lumen. They won't be seen in the layers, but within the lumen. And again a finding, this is a mucosal. And you see the mucin material we have already discussed. Mucin looks pale blue in the microscope. So this pale blue material basically mucin, and this is the smooth muscle coat. So basically a mucocele of appendix. Now words about acute meningitis. So we will be dealing with leptomeningitis, or meningitis refers to as inflammatory process of leptomeninges. So basically there are two meninges. Dura mater and pia arachnoid is basically the soft meninges, and that's why they retain their name as leptomeninges. And the CSF within the subarachnoid space. Now meningoencephalitis is the inflammation of meninges and brain parenchyma. So whenever there is an involvement of brain along with meninges, it will be labeled as meningoencephalitis. So etiology, most common infection, but chemical meningitis do occur in response to a non-bacterial irritant. So infections that are common are acute pyogenic, in which there will be large number of neutrophils. Aseptic, it is a misnomer, there will be lymphocytes, and again chronic, there will be lymphocytes. Acute pyogenic meningitis. Organisms, neonate usually are basically, acute meningitis in neonates is caused by E. coli, group B streptococci. In infants and children, Haemophilus influenzae, in adolescents and young adults, Neisseria meningitidis, adults, Streptococcus pneumoniae and Listeria monocytogenes. So what are the clinical features? The systemic signs of meningeal irritation and neurological impairment are basically headache and photophobia. So headache and photophobia, you should not have a confusion. But along with headache and photophobia, there will be irritability, clouding of consciousness and neck stiffness. So the main point which defines that there may be a meningeal irritation or meningitis is basically the neck stiffness. What will you see in spinal tap? Spinal tap, you will be studying CSF. So the CSF is cloudy or frankly purulent. It is having a high pressure. WBCs will be high, as many as 90,000 cells per cubic mm. There will be high protein and less glucose content. Why? Because they will be consuming the glucose and the protein will be from this as well as from the leakage. Bacteria will be seen on culture. Not always, but in maximum number of cases this can be seen. In immunocompromised patients, purulent meningitis may be caused by other agents like Klebsiella, anaerobic organisms, which may have an atypical course and non-characteristic CSF findings. Morphologically gross. So, gross, when you will be dealing with a gross of acute meningitis, usually in autopsy specimens, because whenever we are suspecting in an alive person a case of meningitis, we are not sending the gross specimen of the brain or the meninges. So these are basically the autopsy finding in cases which have not noticed or which have not been diagnosed clinically in time. So exudate is evident within the leptomeninges over the surface of the brain. Meningeal vessels are dilated, engorged, and they stand out prominently. Location of the exudate varies according to the organism. So for H. influenza, it is basal. For pneumococci, the cerebral convexity is more densely near the sagittal sinus. These are the areas which are involved by pneumococci. From areas of greatest accumulation, tracks of pus can be followed along the blood vessels on the surface of the brain. So basically, there can be the pus tracks. In cases of fulminant meningitis, inflammation may extend to the ventricles, producing ventriculitis. So basically, ventricles will also get inflamed from the meninges. So what will be seen in microscopy? Neutrophils fill the entire subarachnoid space, predominantly around the blood vessels. Gram stains reveal varying number of positive organisms. They can be classified. In fulminant cases, inflammatory cells infiltrate the walls of leptomeningeal veins with potential extension of inflammatory infiltrate into the substance of the brain. So there can be focal cerebritis. Not necessarily the whole brain will be inflamed, but there can be focal cerebritis. Complications: leptomeningeal fibrosis, hydrocephalus, and chronic adhesive arachnoiditis in cases of pneumococcal meningitis. These are all complications. Now a word about acute septal or viral meningitis. This word is a misnomer, aseptic. Why? Because virus is causing it. Generally of viral but rarely of bacterial or other etiology. Clinically is less fulminant than pyogenic meningitis. There can be very few neutrophils in such cases in the CSF examination. There is lymphocytic pleocytosis. That means the lymphocytes are in the variable numbers and ranges. That means small lymphocytes, large lymphocytes. So there is lymphocytic pleocytosis, moderate protein elevation. Sugar is always normal in such cases and self-limiting and treated symptomatically. Pathogens are basically enterovirus, ecovirus, Coxsackie virus. There comes aseptic meningitis like picture, which is usually due to the rupture of epidermoid cyst or chemical meningitis. In this case, the CSF is sterile. Neutrophilic pleocytosis. Again, neutrophils will be seen in here in large number. There is increased protein, but the sugar level is normal. Why? Because there is no bacteria in this. So this is what the gross findings suggest. Can you see there are engorged vessels? Usually when you will open up the brain, remove the dura mater, you can see engorged vessels. So don't jump to the conclusion that there is acute meningitis. You will have to see exudates. That means these whitish patches over the cerebral convexities. Then you can say that yes, there is a possibility of meningitis. Now what you are seeing here, this is the arachnoid membrane, this is the subarachnoid space. So exudates are basically filled in over here. Can you see these whitish exudates? This is the membrane, arachnoid membrane, and this is the subarachnoid space, which are again filled with exudative material. Now, what you are seeing here, this area is a well-defined round lesion. So these white arrows are the margin of an abscess wall. This center area is the exudate in an abscess, which is containing of necrotic material as well as exudative material. Exudative materials are always whitish in color, whereas the necrotic material are like slough, pale, dull or blackish in color. Now what you are seeing here is a midline deviation. Can you see? Here there is a space occupying lesion, and that's why this midline, the area which should come in the center, has deviated towards this side. This is due to the mass effect or the SOL lesion. Again, can you see? Black area is the whole abscess, red is the edema. As we have already learned that in the periphery of an abscess there will be edema, which is a sign of inflammation. And again, this is a shift of midline because of this space occupying lesion. Again, can you see there are whitish areas over here, grossly identifiable. So these are all exudates which are sticking over the cerebral convexities. Now this is how the microscopy looks like. Can you see these all are polymorphs within the arachnoid space. Again, what you are seeing here, this is a pia layer of the pia matter, and this is the cerebrum. So this brain area is basically unaffected, but the meninges are filled with acute inflammatory infiltrates and dilated congested vessels. A high power view, can you see? Lobations of a neutrophil are always identified at high power, that means 40x or 400 times Now, can you see? This is the arachnoid membrane, this whole thin one. This is the subarachnoid space. Subarachnoid space has got vessels. These vessels are engorged, and there is large amount of pus, what you call, or the neutrophilic infiltrate, which is filling this subarachnoid space. This is the brain or the cerebrum. Now what you are seeing here, these small cells which are lobulated are basically neutrophils, polymorphonuclear cells, and the large ones which have come again are basically the macrophages. So why are you seeing macrophages here? Usually macrophages are supposed to be the bridge between acute inflammation and chronic inflammation. So in late cases of acute inflammation and in early cases or even late cases of chronic inflammation, macrophages will be seen. So macrophages are basically seen both in acute inflammation as well as a chronic inflammation. Now, what you are seeing here are the lymphocytes. So, lymphocytes are seen in which? Viral meningitis, acute aseptic meningitis. Okay, it can also be seen when you are searching for autopsy cases which are having inflammation in meninges. Now, what you are seeing here, this is basically the vascular supply of the brain. These are basically the neurons. So what you are seeing here, that this is a glial nodule of inflammatory cells. So basically in this area the brain will undergo healing, and what you are seeing here, that the lymphocytes have cuffed around the blood vessels. So this is known as perivascular cuffing of lymphocytes. These are usually seen in aseptic or the viral meningitis. Now again, can you see this? This is the arachnoid membrane. This is the subarachnoid space. Number of neutrophils. So when you are judging whether these cells are lymphocytes or the neutrophils, you will have to see in high power view, that means 40x or under 400x magnification. Thank you so much.